On this video, I'm going to continue what I have been doing in the book of Job. We're now in the speech of Bildad, who is critiquing Job, saying that the former generations show that the righteous really don't suffer. It must be, Job, that you have been unrighteous. And so we stopped at verse 10. So I'm picking up the argument or the text at verse 11. So it reads, Hayeg gomer beli bitsa yiske ahu beli mayim. Can the rush shoot up and there is not mire? Can the reed grass grow without water? As we come to this section, the illustration of the papyrus reed and the ungodly in these verses gives the observations of the elders. Both appear to be prosperous, but since they have no foundation, they will suddenly wither away and die. And as far as the rushes, this is a papyrus reed of Egypt. It was used to make clothing, shoes, baskets, beads, and paper. But it only grew in marshy places along the Nile River. While it might start to grow in other types of soil, it would die before reaching maturity. So Bildad is arguing the godless resemble this plant because they have external prosperity, but no inward spiritual resource and relation to the Lord to promote ongoing stability. And of course, he is applying this to Job. And then we come to verse 12. Odenu be'abo lo yekatev. While it is yet in its greenness, or while it is yet green and not cut down, Velifnei chol chatzir yibash. Before any other herb, it withers. It withers before every other herb. So as we look at verse 12 then, when the papyrus matured, it was cut down and used. If it didn't have enough moisture, though, it would suddenly dry up before it was really cut down, even though it appeared green. And so Bildad is going to apply this now to the ungodly. So he continues in verse 13. Kain orchot kol shochachei el. So are the paths of all the ones who forget God. V'tikvat hanef toved. And the hope of the ungodly or the godless person will perish or perishes. So in verse 13, he applies it. Likewise, the godly are easily destroyed at the height of popularity. The wicked may grow initially like the papyrus, but their fate is the same. God withdraws his favor and they wither. There's other parallel text in the Hebrew scriptures concerning this. Proverbs 1:19, Psalm 9, verse 17, and Psalm 50:22. similar thought. So then, as we continue in verse 14, the text then continues, whose confidence, asher yakot kislo, whose confidence is as a gossamer, uvet akavish mivtachu, and whose trust is like a spider's web, or as the house of a spider's web is his trust. And so, as Bildad continues, the confidence of such a wicked person being described is like the web of a spider. It is easily destroyed. The person who does not trust God builds flimsy houses with no foundation. And one could compare Isaiah 59, verses 5 and 6 with this idea or this text. And then verse 17, Yisha'en al beito velo ya'amod. He will lean upon his house, but it will not stand. Yachazik bo velo yakum. He shall hold on to it, but it will not be able to endure. And again, we are continuing here, or Bildad is continuing to describe a spider. A spider leans on his web when danger or a storm threatens. So will the godless try to lean upon his house, but it will be as flimsy and destructible as a spider's web. It simply will not stand. And so he continues his description of the ungodly. Ratov hu lifnei shamish. He is green before the sun, va'al ganato yonakto tetse, and his roots, literally, and over his garden, his shoots go forth over his garden. And so, looking at verse 16, his branches spread across the garden. A new simile is introduced by Bildad. The wicked are like a thriving green plant whose roots hold firm amidst earth and its stones. When it is suddenly destroyed, though, its existence is forgotten, and other plants spring up and replace the forgotten plant. So it is with the wicked. While he may for a time prosper, his end is destruction, and his existence is quickly forgotten as others replace him. And then he continues describing the wicked in verse 18 then, as we continue, verse 18 and 19. Im Yavala enu mimmakomo. If he be destroyed from his place, v'chichesh bo lo re'iticha, and it shall deny him by saying, implied, I have not seen you. In other words, even his place that he was will not recognize him. And so what we're seeing here is that he's quickly brought to an end. Others replace him, and the place where he has been doesn't even recognize him. That's the idea or the simile that he is using. And then we continue in verse 19. Hein hu mesos darko. Behold, this is the joy of his way. Ume afar acher yitzmahu. And from the earth another or others will spring forth. And so the verse is really in bitter irony. The joy of a wicked person ends up in his destruction, is Bildad's point. And then in verse 20, Hein el lo yim astam. But behold, God will not cast away an innocent man or a tam, a complete man that is innocent in his life. Velo yachazik biyad mereim. Nor will he uphold evildoers. Will he uphold the hand, literally, of evildoers? And so in verse 20, God will not cast away a good man, is his thought here. Bildad considers Job then a righteous man who evidently has fallen into sin. If he repents, though, God will restore his prosperity. And we have this similar idea in Psalm 73, verse 23, Isaiah 41, 13, and 42, 6. Only if he persists in sinning will God continue to punish him. And then verse 21, Ad yamale sachok picha. In other words, if he would respond, God will answer until he fill your mouth with laughter. Until he fill with laughter your mouth, and your lips with shouting, no doubt shouting for joy. So the thought here is God will eventually fill Job's mouth again with joy and laughter, if only he will recognize his error and repent. That's, I think, in the background of Bildad's thought. And then we continue, Sone'echa yobashu boshet. Boshet. Yet it is they that hate you, the ones who hate you, they will be clothed with shame. And the tent ve'ohel reshaim einenu, and the tent of the wicked ones shall not be anymore, or shall not be. And so what he's saying here is those who hate Job will be ashamed because their hopes that he would die will be frustrated. No doubt is in the background here. Psalm 35:26 and Psalm 109 verse 29. They will is a further idea of the same thought. They will perish though instead of him. So this verse shows that Bildad considers himself a friend of Job and wishes his recovery. But what he's doing, he's urging Job to repent of his sin so that God will be able to bless him again. So as we look at this speech of Bildad, what he's really saying is we know from past experience and we know from former generations that the righteous do not suffer. And we know that the godless will perish. And he gives different illustrations of that in the different plants, the reed grass and the rush and so forth, and that the wicked are soon cut off. And so, after describing all of that, he then says, Job, if you but repent, God can restore you again, and you can be back prosperous and laughing with joy. And so that's his thought. I suppose we could say he's trying to help Job. However, he is holding to a theology that is unbending, and that is the people of the past have taught us that the righteous do not suffer like you're doing. And we have some of the same problems today. At times, even in the church, there is the thought if you just have enough faith, everything would be okay. Or if you really were more righteous, you wouldn't suffer and go through things. And that is really wrong. And of course, as we move through the book, Job will give response after response to his three friends who are tied to that philosophy or that belief that the righteous aren't suffering, it's only the wicked. So we need to be careful today and not become, quote, friends like Bildad. Uh, who needs friends like that, I guess? It just doesn't encourage one. But Bildad, I'm sure, according to the text, was trying to help Job, but he wasn't really helping him at all. So I'm going to stop there, and we'll continue then with Job's response to Bildad.